Hey friends, welcome to the channel. Today in this video we're going to solve the final problem of week 3 of CS50, which is runoff. So to solve the problem, the very first thing we'll do is we'll see the requirements, and to see the requirements we basically come to this website cs50.harvard.edu/x/2025. If you're watching this video next year, make sure to make it 26. Click on week 3, go to the bottom, problem set 3, and this is the problem we are solving today, runoff. We have solved the previous problems in the previous videos. If you've not watched those, make sure to watch it if you need to. Click on runoff, and if you read the entire description, you will see that this is an election related problem again, and this is basically a preference based election, as in if there are 5 voters and 3 candidates. For example, if the candidates are Alice, Bob and Charlie, and if there are 5 voters, all of the voters will vote for all of the 3 candidates. They will basically show their preferences. So first preference of the first voter, second preference of the first voter, and the third preference of the first voter again. And we will first calculate whether or not there is a clear winner. Winner as in the winner has to have more than 50% of the votes. So for example, if there are 5 voters, then the winner will have to have at least 3 votes, which would be the majority, right? Similarly, if there were 10 voters, the winner would have to have 10 divided by 2 is 5 plus 1, as in the majority of the votes, right? If you want to read more about, or if you want to learn more about the entire election system of the problem that we are solving, you can come down and you can watch this walkthrough by Brian. Okay, so to solve this problem, the very first thing that we're going to do is we are going to go to cs50.dev, or you can just click here, Visual Studio Code. I command clicked, and then you can click on login, and then we'll give it a moment to load. Once everything has loaded, first we will navigate to the week 3 folder that we created in the previous videos. So we'll say cd week 3, press enter, ls. Okay, we are in the right place, and now we'll go back here and we'll download the distribution code by expanding this, copying this line, and then we'll come back and we'll paste it here, and if you need to press enter. Okay, so now we downloaded the runoff.zip file. So now we'll say unzip runoff.zip, press enter, and then we got a folder, and now we will get rid of the runoff.zip file. So I'll say rm runoff.zip, press enter. Are you sure you want to remove it? Y for yes. Okay, we got rid of it. Now we'll navigate to cd runoff, press enter, and we'll code runoff.c. Okay, now let me get rid of this. Okay, so this is the code that we have. This is the distribution code that is given. A few things, if you want, you can read the entire code, and you should, I recommend. The few things that we have to keep in mind though to solve the problem is a few facts, as in there's a global array called preferences, right, which stores the preferences of the ith voter and this rank, right? You will learn more about it when we are solving the problem. Another thing that we have to keep in mind is the custom structure called candidate has 3 attributes within it. The first is string called name, second is integer called votes, and then there's a boolean value, a boolean variable called eliminated, which can either store a true or a false. Okay, cool. Another thing is we have a global array again called candidates, right? And it is of size max candidates. We don't need to worry about this, but this candidates is important, and it is of type candidate. Candidate as in this. Cool. Okay, so again there's another global variable, 2 of these that we have to use later on, which we will. There's first called voter count, and the second one is candidate count. Cool. And then blah 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 blah, everything's there. Cool. So the problem that we are supposed to solve is from here. We have to complete the functions from line 127. The first is bool vote blah 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 blah. Basically what we have to do is we have to check record preferences if vote is valid. So what we will do is we will run through, the main function does everything else. All we have to do is solve the functions in the bottom. So what we will do is we will run through the candidates array, and we will see whether or not the vote, or basically the name that the voter gives us, we will try to match it with all of the candidates in the candidates array, and if it matches, then we will record it, and then we will record the preference, and then we will return true. And if we have tried matching like through all the candidates, and if we have not been able to match any, then we will just return false. Okay, so to do that, what we will do is for int I equals 0, and we will do this while I is less than candidate count. This is also a global variable, so we will be able to use it even though it is not provided in the input for this function. And then what we will do is I++, okay, what we will do then is we will try to match it, as in if strcmp, but in order to use the string compare function, we will need to have the string header file, which we don't have as of now, so we'll add it. Include string.h. okay, let's get back to our function. Okay, this is where we are. We'll try to string compare, and what are we going to compare? What we will compare is if the candidate as at ith positions name and the name that is provided by the user, if those two are equal, it would return 0. And if it does return 0, what we are going to do is we are going to record the preferences, this voter rank. So we are recording the preferences of the ith voter's jth rank, and what we want to be is basically the candidate's index, right? So the preference of this voter and this rank of this voter is this index, and these index are related to the candidates, right? So basically we'll be able to use it later on when we are trying to tabulate the votes for all of the candidates. Okay, this is done. And if we are able to do this, we don't want to keep looping again, right? Because this will be called every single time when the voter enters a candidate's name. So once we found one, once we are able to record a preference, we'll just return. We will end up like this function's execution right away. So we'll say return true, and once we return true, it will not be executed anymore. This function is done for now. Cool, that is done. Hopefully this should work. If it doesn't, we will fix it later. Once we have done this, the next thing that we are going to solve is we are going to tabulate the votes for all of the candidates. Tabulate votes for non-eliminated candidates. Okay, wonderful. And in order to tabulate the votes, we are going to use the preferences that we calculated in the vote function, right? So we are going to use a nested loop for this. So we'll say for int I equals 0 while I is less than voter count, and then what we will say is I++, and within this we want to check for all the candidates. So we'll say again for int j equals 0, j is less than candidate count, and j++. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to check whether or not the candidate at certain index is eliminated. But at what index? Remember, if we go back to this function, the vote function, we were storing the index of the candidate according to the rank in something called preferences, right? So we will use that. We'll say if the candidate at preferences index dot eliminated. Okay, so what is happening in this line is basically we are checking the candidate at preferences index. If the candidate is eliminated, and we are figuring that out by using the fact that the candidate data type has string, votes, and also something called eliminated, it stores true if the candidate is eliminated, and it stores false if the candidate is still running in the election. So here, if the candidate is eliminated, dot eliminated would be true, right? This entire thing would be true, and then this exclamation marks makes it the opposite. So true becomes false, and if it is false, the code inside will not be executed. However, if the candidate is not eliminated, this would be false, and this exclamation mark would make it true, and whatever is inside this would return true, right? Basically it would be executed. Okay, cool. So what we're going to do is we'll say candidate at this position, the votes of that candidate we want to increase by 1, right? And if we were able to do it, then we'll just say return. Once we have calculated all the votes, once we have tabulated it, the next problem that we're going to solve is we are going to print the winner. Okay, wonderful. So remember in the beginning I told you that in order for there to be a winner, the candidate would have to have more than half of the votes, right? So basically what we can use here, the logic that we're going to use is we are going to use a threshold. We'll say int threshold is equals to, and what we are going to do here is voter count divided by 2, right? So for example, if there are 10 voters, we will divide 10 by 2, which will give us 5. So what we will check is whether or not the candidate, if the candidate is not eliminated, and if the candidate's votes is greater than the threshold, then they are the winner, right? So what we'll do is, again we'll use a loop. We'll say for int I equals 0, we'll say I is less than candidate count and I plus plus. Alright, this should work. And what we are going to check is if the current candidate is not eliminated, candidate at ith position dot eliminated. If the candidate is not eliminated, and another thing that we're going to check is and if the current candidates at ith positions votes is greater than threshold. Let me put all of this in a bracket. If this is the case, then we want to printf %s, and then what we want to print here is hold on, the candidate's names. And if we are able to successfully print this, we will just say return true. Wonderful, this should work. And once this is done, what we are going to do next is we are going to find the minimum value, the minimum number of votes any remaining candidate has. So what we are going to do is, let me get rid of this first. Okay, so first we will use an integer called min, int min. So what we will do is we'll look through the candidates list and we will basically check whether or not the candidate's vote is less than min. As in, if the current candidate's vote is less than min, then we will just replace the value of min with the current candidate's vote, right? We are basically looping through everything and we are checking what is the lowest value. So int min is 0, and what we'll do is for int I equals 0, and while int I is less than candidate count, we'll go to the next line and we will say if we are going through this loop for the first time, in that case the I would be 0, since we don't really have a value for min. So if I is 0, in that case what we want to do is we want to assign the value of the votes of the current candidate to min, right? So we'll say the current candidate at ith positions votes, we will assign it to min. And then if it is not the first time, then the rest of the thing would be executed. So what we would check is if the current candidate's votes is less than min, in that case what we want to do is we want to update the value of min by the exact thing, that is the vote value of the current candidate. And once we have done this, if we are able to find all the min, when we will look through the entire thing, we'll be able to calculate the minimum votes. And after we have done all the looping and everything, we'll just return min. Since the return value of this function is an integer, right? We are able to return min. Wonderful, this is done. The next thing that we're going to do is we are going to figure out whether or not the game is a tie, right? So return true if the election is tied between all the candidates, and false otherwise, right? Let me get rid of this for now. So what we will do is we will say for int I equals 0 while I is less than candidate count I plus plus. So this function is receiving a variable called min, as in the minimum number of votes that we have currently. So what we will do is we will look through everything and we'll check whether or not the current candidate's vote is different from min. If it is different, then there's not a tie, right? However, if it is different, then at the end we will return something. There are two things we're going to check: if the candidate is eliminated or not. That is a major thing that we have to check. So we'll say if the current candidate is not eliminated and if the candidates at ith positions votes is not equals to min. Only if both of these values are true, then we want to return false, because this would mean that the vote is not equals to the vote of any candidate is not equals to min, and if that is the case, definitely like the votes are unequal, so there is not a tie, right? If we have looked through this entire thing and if we are not able to return false, by default we will return true at the end, right? So this is done. The next thing that we're going to solve is we are going to eliminate candidates, and the way that we are going to do that is eliminate the candidate or candidates in last place, right? So this could be one candidate or multiple, right? So we don't have to return anything like right in the middle of the loop. So what we are going to do is, let me just copy all of this thing, copy, I'll paste it here because we are going to use a loop. And what we will check is whether or not the candidate's vote is equals to the minimum votes that we have. If that is the case, then what we want to do is we want to say, basically we want to eliminate the candidate. So eliminates candidates I dot eliminated equals true. We will eliminate the candidate, and once we have done everything, we'll return at the end. Okay, hopefully this would work. Let me see if there are any errors. Runoff. All right, line 135, we are making some mistake. If this is the case, then we need a single equals here, not a double equals, and that should hopefully solve the error. No? Oh yes, this is a major mistake we are making. We don't necessarily have a voter and rank variable here, so we will just use ij, because that is what we are using here. ij, and let's check again. Okay, we were able to make runoff without any errors, which is wonderful. Okay, so once we have done this, what we are going to do is we will check the correctness of our program. If you want, you can test some cases, but I don't really want to do that right now. So just paste it here and press enter if needed, and we'll wait for a moment for CS50 to check our program. So there's some error, and the error currently is in the tabulate and the print winner function, right? So let's see what's wrong. All right, the mistake that we were making is we don't just want to return something here, because if we do that, the entire loop is broken right there, but we don't want to do that. Why? Because we want to calculate the votes for all of the candidates, right? So what we want to do is we just want to say break. The reason we want to put break here is because if we break the loop, only this particular loop will be broken, right? If we were to say return, it will break all of this function, right? We will just like exit the entire function, but we want to calculate the votes for all of the candidates, right? So we want to put break here, and here we want to say return only at the end of the function. Okay, this might solve the tabulate issue. The next thing that we are missing here is the winner. Let's go to that function. Oh, of course, silly mistake, \n. We want to print the name of the winner, and then we want to add a new line. Hopefully this would work. So make runoff. Let me clear the screen, and we'll check 50 again. So hopefully, fingers crossed, hopefully this would work. Let's see. And there we go, it's all green, which is wonderful, right? Okay, now let's fix the style. If you want, you can copy and paste this command and execute it, but what I like to do all the time, as I have told you in the previous videos, is click on right top corner, style 50. Looks good, means the styling is correct. So we'll submit our program, we'll copy this submit code, we'll come here, we'll paste it, we'll press enter, and then it will ask us whether or not we are sure we want to submit it, which we are. We'll say yes, I am sure. So it will upload it and it will tell us again, your program has been uploaded and this is your score. So command click open. Let's see what we got. We get 25 upon 25, full points for our logic, and similarly full points for our styling. So this is how you solve the Runoff program. If you want the solutions for all the other problems of CS50, make sure to watch the playlist that is currently on the screen. And also, if you have not already subscribed to the channel, make sure to do that. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.